Good evening. Tonight's story is The Hidden Beast by J.D. Beresford. Um, so, the story starts off, it is a small village. There is a house at the edge of the forest, and it is said that there is a surly, strange, sinister looking man that lives there. He doesn't hang out in the village very often, but one night he did come into the village. He was hanging out, he was at the inn. He was having dinner. He met up with a man named John. Him and John were hanging out, talking. John thought it was weird because normally he keeps to himself and he does not really talk with the community or anything, but this night he was. It was getting to the end of the night, and then he asked John, "Do you want to come back to my house?" They were having a good conversation. John was very kind of taken back by it. He was like, the guy mentioned, sometimes people just don't want to be alone. So John's like, okay. So John decided to go with him and hang out at his house. So they take that long path because his house was closer to the forest. It was kind of far away from the village, not, right with everyone else. So they get there and they go inside and they're talking. And the man was talking about how he feels like he lives in between two worlds, the wild and the restrained. And when he looked out his back windows, how he could see into the forest, and he spent most of his time looking out that way. The other way, of course, what he was talking about, the restrained, is, the community, the town, which I don't think he really felt part of the town. Like John said, uh, this man didn't really speak a whole lot, so it was just surprising that he was speaking. And so they were, having a conversation about, the two different worlds. And so the conversation got to where it was about we have to choose between freedom and safety. And if an individual is too wild and dangerous for common life, then he must make an agreement with the community, and submit to become a member with the people because, in a community, you have your laws, you have things like that you have to abide by, so you can't just be wild. And while they're having this conversation, John hears the sound coming from below the floor in the room where he is sitting. And it did startle him a little bit. And the man noticed he heard that, and the man just let him know, oh, that is an echo from the jungle. Because remember, the windows are open in the place they're staying in his little house, and you can see the back forest. Well, John knows he heard that from underneath his seat, and he was startled with that. So he stood up and he told the man that he thought he would prefer the safety of the common life and the security of shelter, and that the wild terrified him. And he let him know, but it was time for him to go ahead and go home. And the surly man was like, okay. And he didn't detain him or try and stop him or anything. And so John decided it was time for him to go. And so he goes ahead and leaves. Well, when he goes home to the village, they seem to be talking about within the next week that they were talking about how that man is strange, and they think that he has some kind of caged animal in his home because they keep hearing loud noises and it sounds like he's torturing some type of an animal, and it's being held prisoner in his house. Well, they have, it's a community, so they do have a council. John had been put on the council that year, so he got to take part in the voting. And they all decided that they were going to vote on going to his house and checking it out. Their fear was if there was a wild animal in his house, if it did get out, would it come and attack their little community, their little village? And they did not want that to happen. It's a community, so these are the people in charge to keep it safe. So they voted. Even John voted, but John, when he voted, he said, well, let's go during the daylight hours. And they all agreed. So they show up to this man's house, and there were 6 of them, and they went in the daylight. He laughed at them when they showed up. He thought it was funny that they wanted to check out his house, knowing what they had been saying, and he let them in. He let them look everywhere they wanted to look, and they looked high and low. They were peering, they were tapping. They found no evidence whatsoever that any wild thing had ever been concealed in this house. So they went ahead and left. They felt better about the situation because there was no caged animal and there were no signs of a caged animal there. But the curiosity of this whole story is after they left, within a month of the day that they searched his house, he did leave the village. And one time, right before he left, John seen him, and he told John that he had chosen the wild and freedom, that he could no longer endure to be held to the village, even with the thread of the footpath. So his house was still too close to the village, so he left. So he did tell John that he had chosen the wild. So that is the end of the story. I feel like that man was a werewolf. I think it's possible that maybe he had one under the floorboard or something, that he invited John over that night. I think it was good that John got startled and got up and got out of there. I don't think that the people in the village were hearing these noises and nothing was going on. So I don't know if he had caught himself a werewolf and he wanted to be free with the werewolf. So I'm not really sure on that. But yeah, I do feel like this man was a werewolf. So anyway, you can like, subscribe, or just leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Because I think that he was possibly a werewolf, and I would just like to know your thoughts. Anyway, I hope you have a wonderful evening, and thank you for joining me for the story. And I will be seeing you again soon. Bye.